2024 was brutal with that enormous national election.
Yeah.
No, the next one's only the end of 26.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this year I think will be a good year because we will be focusing on work in the city and not focusing on campaigning.
Though you launched your campaign, if I remember, in Bonteheuwel.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Good
you launched your speech there, and it was there that you also started your membership of the Democratic Alliance, and it was something that I looked at in quite amazement at the time, because you were fairly new to the local scene, and a lot of people were having then to warm up to Geordin Hill-Lewis. Do you think that has been the case so far, that you've settled in quite a bit and had a good hand? Because I remember even our first interview since then, you spoke about building a city for the future, building a resilient city of some sort.
Yeah.
I'm wondering how far along, of course it's a very vast question, but how far along would you say we are in this effort that you set out in Bonteheuwel on that day?
Okay, well, let's just start with your first question. I hope that people have got to know me or warmed up to me, as you said.
Yeah.
But I must say to you that I'm not interested in being in politics, and I am not in politics to win, approval or acceptance. I'm here to do what I believe very deeply in my heart needs to be done, and what I'm passionate about doing for the future of our city. And I get my validation from my family, and I get my validation from my group of friends and from my church, my faith community. So that I've always felt that's been like a secret weapon for me, because I do not need public validation. Actually, I need to go to bed at night feeling like I have used the time available to me, the last 18 hours or however long I've been at work that day, to the best of my ability to do good for society, for our city. And that's what I try to do every day. When I get home at night, and unfortunately in this job I often get home after dark, after my family is asleep, and I walk quietly past my wife. Very often my daughter is in the bed with her because I haven't been there. And the first thing I do is I go to the bathroom and wash my face and get changed and so on. And I look in the mirror and I have to ask myself, the sacrifice, is it worth it? And I want to make sure that it is, by using every hour to the best of my ability to better prepare the city for the future. So now we come to the second part of your question. Are we preparing the city for the future? I think that the job of any mayor should be, is the city in a slightly better place than when you started? And no one should be arrogant enough to say every problem will be solved, because if anyone tells you that, they are lying. If any politician tells you that, our problems are too big in South Africa for any one person to solve them in any 5-year term. They are going to take many, many years, if not generations, to solve. But what we can do is move the ball forward. We can move closer to solving a number of problems. And that's what we are trying to do. And for me, the biggest thing holding Cape Town back is our infrastructure, because many of your listeners will know. Again, this morning I see this report, this international report on the state of our traffic, the 9th most congested city. The state of our sewer infrastructure, it's not nearly as you see these collapses all over Johannesburg and Gauteng. Yes, it might not be collapsing like that. We might not have all these huge crises on our hands, but if we don't make the investments now to prepare for such a rapidly growing city, that's we will get there at some point. So we have to act now, boldly now, and proactively now, to make sure that our city is ready for the future. And infrastructure is hard. That's why other cities are not doing it, and that's why they are now not reaping the reward. You reaping the consequences of that lack of investment. So we are, I'm pushing really hard to make sure that when I leave this office, our infrastructure is in a better place, I can sleep well. Cape Townians can rest well knowing that for the next few years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever the case is, our infrastructure is sorted, our city will work. Then I'll be a happy man.
And the city working, has often been a point of contention. And as a student of philosophy, because you obtained, I think it was an honours in politics and philosophy and so on, the study of what says epistemology, that talks about, one's sense of reason, perception, intuition. How does one then filter knowledge and understand that? And I'm wondering how much of that plays a part in your heart of hearts believing that in the city of Cape Town you run a better ship. I ask this question, in view of, yes, it may well be politicking, but there are ANC members, of course, at the moment in Kailicha, pointing out and taking pictures of rubble all over the place and so on, and they're saying that sure, it's great, that the mountains are green, the streets look clean in certain parts of the city of Cape Town, but fundamentally, when you go into certain communities, there is a vast amount of neglect. Of course, there's a lot of politics there, but is there a sense of reality there as well?
Listen, it's been. I've had a couple of thoughts the last few days. Let me take you through my thoughts. Firstly, I think there's a part of it that's actually really encouraging and flattering. I love the fact that for the first time ever, the ANC is so nervous about their loss of support among black urban voters that they have come to Cape Town to attack the DA. They've brought their whole national machine to Cape Town to attack the DA and attack the city of Cape Town about black urban voters. There's a very good reason for them doing that. It's not just by chance. They have seen the numbers. They saw the results from last year's election. They've seen that the DA is growing among urban black voters. In fact, our growth in Kailicha was the fourth biggest growth in the DA support numbers. So I'm sorry to make a political point, but you asked a slightly political question. So part of it says, wow, we've never actually been attacked like this by the ANC before, and that reveals something. It reflects something. The ANC is nervous about something, and I love that. The second thought is, I have to chuckle. I am not going to take lectures on government from a party that has brought South Africa to its knees over the last 30 years, or let's say starting from after the Mbeki presidency over the last 20 years, has brought South Africa to the brink of disaster. I'm not going to take lectures on government from people who don't show the same level of concern for babies dying in a failed health system in the Eastern Cape, for children dying in pit latrines in KZN in public schools, which they still haven't fixed. None of those things happen in this city, and they never will happen. They don't show the same level of concern for a collapsing infrastructure system in Africa's most important and biggest economy, in Gauteng. Widespread water collapse, widespread, not a single light or traffic light working. No, none of the same level of concern. So frankly, when they start to try and give me lectures about government, I have to take it with a pinch of salt and laugh and say, I hope while they are in Cape Town, they can learn something about how to actually move forward slowly but surely, despite enormous difficulties. 15 years in this country, we have not had a growing economy. We would have a vastly different country right now if our economy had been growing at just 3 or 4% over the last 15 years. In fact, it's been growing at 0. People have been getting poorer, not richer. Unemployment has been going up every year, not down. So yes, I think Cape Town manages, despite those enormous challenges, despite people moving here by their hundreds of thousands, to move the human development situation, to move the quality of life forward, slowly but surely over time. Have we got everything right? Of course not. When you find a government that has everything right, please let me know. I'd like to vote for them. But we are moving forward slowly but surely in the right direction, while the rest of the country and every single thing that the ANC touches is falling apart.
the executive mayor in studio with us this morning, Geordin Hill-Lewis, and you can interact with him. I'll go through some of the WhatsApp messages in just a bit. There's a number of it, and anywhere from Gleamore to Surrey Estate to even parts of the northern parts where you are from in Edgemead. People are, of course, sending us some messages this morning, so I'll go through them in just a bit. We are rounding up the holiday period, and I'll combine these two questions because purely just for the sake of time. I saw, I think it was the Good Party making an issue, and I don't want to make it because you're here as mayor, but I don't want to make it a political issue, but the issue around pools, not all of them have opened, and I think Patricia van der Ros was telling me that all of them would have opened, but they did not all open, and I want to dovetail that with the oceans, the beaches, this report that disputes, the city's readings about how safe the beaches are to swim in. I'm not sure whether you've come across it, but they seem to suggest that not Geordin, but the city is misleading the public about how safe you feel the beaches are.
No, I really take strong issue with that. I mean, we do extensive testing of our beach water quality, and we publish those online. We have an online data portal, a water quality portal. Anyone can go and check those water quality reports on a weekly basis. And we conducted 846, I believe, if I remember correctly, that's the exact number, 846 tests, all of which came up clean and safe for those blue flag beaches. Then those are verified by an external outside body that does the Blue Flag Status Award. We don't do it. We don't mark our own homework. It's an outside body that awards the Blue Flag status. They go and do their own verification, and they awarded those 8 Blue Flag status beaches in Cape Town. Then this group of water activists who are upset about our coastal outfalls, and we can debate that as well. They have some very valid points. They went and did 5 tests, 846. My understanding is that they did 5 tests. Now, they haven't told us where those were tested, what labs they were from, who did the testing, are they credible? And they found that the water quality in those 5 tests was not as high as the 846. So there's no problem with that. But I don't like them saying that we are trying to mislead the public, because that is fundamentally not true. We are open. We play open cards. We put up our tests online. Anyone can go and check them. We believe in open and transparent accountability. So we'll get to the bottom of their tests as well, and hopefully they will be as open as we are and have always been about our test results. But I can assure you, and I can say with absolute confidence, that our blue flag beaches are clean and safe for the public to swim in. And I can say, because I spent the holiday here, that I swam in many of them myself and had an awesome time. A couple of days ago, took my family down to Boulders, and it was magnificent, crystal clear. It was like, I don't know, swimming in Mauritius or something. It was really magnificent. Then on the pools, yes. So we really wanted to get 37 pools open. We have not achieved that. I'm also not satisfied with that. I think we've got to about 32 or 34, something like that. But a couple of them are still closed. And I need to get into the reasons for each specific delay. But yes, it was our goal to have 37 open. We didn't get there, but we will absolutely get there as soon as possible. We want every single pool to be open for the full summer season.
Right. I'm certain there's a couple of things that you will have your hands full now on your return first day back at work. I'm wondering, since the December period, because in December there was, the Constitutional Court was very busy on one day issuing a whole lot of judgments. One of it was around Bromwell Street and, the evictions that took place there. And I'm trying to understand the judgment, because what they're trying to say, and I don't fully understand it, and maybe some legal people need to have a look at it, which I'm certain you are seeking a legal opinion on. they're saying that if you are evicting somebody, give them a place to stay close to where you are evicting them from, or within that sort of general region.
Vicinity, yeah.
Do you agree with that?
So just to be clear, what they specifically said is that this is not a precedent-setting case. So this does not necessarily apply to other evictions. Remember, also, this is a private eviction. The city actually had nothing to do with this eviction. This is a private property developer who's bought some properties in a street called Bromwell in Woodstock.
Yeah, it's right there by the train station.
And wanted to develop those properties. So we are not a party to the eviction. But unfortunately, the way that the law works in South Africa, even for private evictions, the city, the municipality where you live, has to provide alternative accommodation if you need it. Now, just imagine how difficult that makes it for in a city the size of Cape Town. To put this into perspective, there are literally hundreds and hundreds of private evictions every month that the city or no government department has anything to do with in Cape Town. If we have to provide accommodation in the area of that eviction for all of those private evictions, I think it would be best to maybe shut down our housing department and just call it a alternative accommodation for evictions department, because that's all we will be doing. Mm-hmm. So we were watching this case very carefully. The court ruled that in this case, this is the crucial thing, we should have made more of an effort to accommodate the people from Bromwell in the vicinity of Woodstock. But the court also said that they recognize, and I'm very grateful to them for saying this, they recognize that this is not possible in every case. And that we do not have the duty to do this in every case. So that is a critical statement for us. So yes, it is a slightly confusing judgment, because it's almost like the court has walked a knife edge, finding in favor in this case, but also saying it's not precedent setting.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, that's the court.
So who did the eviction, or rather, if you're saying this was
a private developer, yeah.
So when these people were placed supposedly in some rural part of the city where there's no schools, there's no public transport, and so on and so forth, because those really were their contentions.
Yes.
They're being chucked somewhere else, and how they're going to live and survive, and from where they used to live. The city had no involvement there.
We have the involvement in providing the alternative accommodation, but we have no involvement in the eviction. We are not applying for the eviction. This is a private eviction. That's a critical thing to understand. Most of the reporting on this has missed that this is not a city eviction. We have a duty. This is the way the South African law currently is. Any municipality has a duty to provide alternative accommodation. We've had this discussion in relation to homelessness. But the debate has been, we provide that alternative accommodation where we can. We cannot possibly provide alternative accommodation where that person wants to live. You can just imagine if someone, for example, is being, let's use a crazy example, is being evicted in Bantry Bay. And then the city must provide alternative accommodation in Bantry Bay.
Yeah.
That's what the effect is. I mean, that's crazy. That's completely unsustainable for any city or municipality to do. So we've always said we will provide alternative accommodation where we can, and that is what this case was about.
So why would the city have provided alternative accommodation for those residents for what was a private eviction? Because if those people bought those properties to develop those properties and they sought an eviction order, is it not up to them then to find that alternative accommodation?
But this is what I'm saying. This is the I think craziness of the South African legal system at the moment, is that it's up to the local government, the local municipality, to provide the alternative accommodation, even for private evictions. And this is what makes it really difficult for us to keep up. If there's any private eviction and the person asks for alternative accommodation, it is up to the local government to provide it. And up until now, we've said, given this is a city of 5 million people, you can imagine there's hundreds of evictions going on around the city at any one time, which we don't even know about. We have no idea about. We can't be standing as the responsible accommodation provider for all of those evictions all the time.
Yeah.
And then to add another layer to say not only must you provide the accommodation, but it must be where the people choose to live. No, come on, that's not. I don't think many people would find that reasonable. So that is what this case hinged on. But that is the legal system at the moment. We do already provide that alternative accommodation, but we do it where we can do it. So if that means it's at a TRA, a temporary relocation area, far from where the person lives, then that's what we have available.
I suppose the challenge here was that those used to be city-owned properties. That was then, was it?
No.
So it wasn't sold and then...
Look, let me not
speak
out of turn. It may have been done decades ago.
Okay,
I don't know.
But not in the recent time.
No.
Okay.
No.
Talking about that, how is the Safe Spaces experiment going? I'm saying experiment because it was seen to be pretty novel at some stage that this was, the scenario that you needed to essentially come up with a plan to deal with homelessness and people that are occupying public spaces. But then how does one do that? You're evicting them from where they live, or where they're currently residing on the street, because there's a dignity problem and there's a look and feel problem as well.
Correct.
And your proposal was then, let's establish these safe spaces, let's open it up and allow people to find some sort of dignity. Are people using them to the point where they are filled and it's actually taken people off from the street?
They are absolutely packed. We are constantly looking for more space to build more. And the issue is, they are very successful. The short answer, Tashreeq, they're very successful. They are achieving their goal. We are cleaning up the homeless camps, the tented encampments. I don't know what it is now, 13, 14, 15 that we have completely cleaned up. All of those people the majority of them have gone to safe spaces. But the problem is they are, one, very expensive for the public of Cape Town who are carrying the bill. And we still have a lot of homeless people on the streets around the city. So we've got 2 more in the CBD that we need to address. But we're now working on OBS, we're working on Athlone, we're working on around the Claremont station. We've got some in Belleville that there's a whole number of cases currently before the courts. So we need a lot more space. So we're working on new safe spaces out in the South Peninsula, in Musenberg, in Takai. There's a desperate calls for one in the Parklands area, which we will do as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then, probably Belleville as well.
Talking about Wynberg, the contention with
Wynberg station, sorry, not Claremont.
Contention with that Prasa-owned land and what's been going on there close to that station mosque area.
A real problem, yeah.
Has Prasa moved on a previous promise to deal with the issue?
Yes, so they did an illegal eviction there, as you know. It was very contentious at the time. Now, I'm sure that most residents will welcome it, and of course, like from a common sense perspective, we would say you've got to deal with the issue. But it's amazing to me the double standards that's at play, because I promise you, if Cape Town law enforcement shows up at any tented camp, there's lawyers there in 20 minutes and you don't touch anyone here without going to court. Prasa goes and destroys a whole camp and it's like nothing happens. Like they just kind of get away with it. So we are dealing with a number of Prasa and Transnet owned properties. Some of your listeners, they might travel in to work along the N1
to the left
of the N1 by the Woodstock Bridge. There's a huge camp there now. That is Transnet land again. So it's part of that Culemborg land. So we're dealing with Transnet there to try and get an eviction going there. There's the Prasa land in Wynberg. There's more Prasa land elsewhere in the city, in Belleville in particular, that's illegally occupied. So actually, we're getting to a point where the city is cleaning up all of its homeless camps around city land, but we are left with a number of very unsightly, very dangerous, problematic tented encampments where people are not living in dignity. They should be off the streets in land owned by other government departments. Now, unfortunately, I cannot advocate for anyone breaking the law. We have shown in Cape Town that you have to go through the legal process. You have to provide alternative accommodation. So you can't just go skop, skit and boom, klim and go there and knock down tents and stuff. That's not the way to do it.
Here's a WhatsApp that, and I'm going to get to the WhatsApp line in just a bit, but the one that says the planning of the city of Cape Town sucks. They clean up the homeless without a proper safe spaces, knowing full well that they will relocate to District 6. And of course the concern there about District 6, and you can respond to that, but I want to dovetail that with what I see happening on what I understand to be a land that's owned by a trust in Ndebeni.
Very problematic.
What is that? Just opposite the cemetery,
yes.
Close to Kensington, off Voortrekker Road. It for all these years there were like a handful of people that used to live on that property in informal dwellings. Now it is sprawled into almost a full entire township, and I often saw law enforcement standing there as if though they are just spectators to what's going on, unable to fully actually to move in and understand the legal challenges there. But let's deal with where you're removing people from, then they move to different spaces, i.e. District 6 as an example, and then also then what's happening in places like in Ndebeni and those places where you said was a challenge.
It's the same problem in both sites. It's where the land is owned by other entities, other government entities, and they don't protect it. It's the same with Prasa and Transnet land. They don't protect the land. They allow these invasions to happen, and then they expect the city to help them later. Now, in Cape Town, we follow the law. We are not allowed to go onto someone's private property and evict shack dwellers or homeless people. The Ndebeni Trust is a land reform trust that was formed many decades ago. I'm told about 20, 25 years ago. And in fact, when the trust was formed for a land reform project, there was an agreement that the military at the time, whose land it was originally, would fence it for them. That never happened. And the Ndebeni Trust, the trustees, never took action against the military to say, you agreed to fence this land and you never did. And they've also never done anything with the land. So the trust owns the land. They haven't done anything to develop it, to give something to their beneficiaries, and they have not protected it properly. And so we have done what we can. By the way, law enforcement has not been there as a what did you call it? Spectator.
Yeah.
We've been trying to stop that occupation very actively. And residents there will tell you, who live in the roads around there, they've seen law enforcement trying to stop people before they move onto the land, when it's clear that they're taking building materials and tents or whatever onto the land to stop that. But once they are there and set up, then the law applies. Now, let me just go to District 6. Firstly, the questioner, the WhatsApp question is incorrect, because we have not moved anyone without a safe space available. Every single person who has been moved off the streets by the city has got a space in a safe space. Now, of course, it is voluntary for them to take it. We cannot force them. It's not a prison. They if they do not wish to go there, that's up to them, but they cannot remain in the tent where they are on the side of the sidewalk. So some of them have gone to District 6, and I phoned the Minister of Land Reform, who owns District 6. Again, it is not owned by the city. It is a land reform project. I phoned the Minister of Land Reform, and I took her there. She's now the Speaker of Parliament, Minister Toko Didiza at the time. And she'll tell you, I took her there, and I said, Minister, this land is becoming a problem. Just look here. We stood at the top by that little church. I said, look here, look at the number of structures that you can see on your land. Please do something to protect this land. By the time you get around to building here, we must have another conversation about that, by the way, because it's taking way too long to build there. By the time you get around to it, there's going to be nothing left. She looked, she said, you're entirely right. She picked up her phone, she called her Director General, barked some orders at the Director General. You must protect this land, get this eviction going, get the fences up. That's the last I ever heard of it. Nothing happened. So I am worried about that. I really think we need to have a proper public conversation about what's happening at District 6. The development is taking way too long. They are not protecting it properly.
What is your exposure there in District 6? Because I don't fully understand it. There are several parties for the longest time that's been involved in that. Community structures, government, and City of Cape Town. And then there was that you would build certain parts of it and the national government would do other parts of it. I don't fully always understand who does what in District 6. But does the city have any exposure in terms of land ownership as well as the commitment to development in District 6?
No, not to land ownership. It's all under the auspices of the Department of Land Reform. But we do have financial exposure because we have to provide bulk services to those developments. So underground sewer, water, electricity connections, roads, streetlights. We have a standing item on our budget for 350 million rand to provide that. And I'm very concerned that every year we roll over that amount, we roll over that number. But of course, what happens to prices? They keep going up. And I'm concerned that by the time we get around to building that underground infrastructure, because it's taking so long, the budget allocation is not going to be enough. I'm also concerned for the rest of Cape Town that we keep saving this huge chunk of money on our budget, which could be spent on other things, in the hopes that we're going to spend it sometime soon, but we're not moving forward fast enough. So let me say, in a number of respects, I'm really concerned about District 6, and it is just a moral outrage, I think, that these beneficiaries are passing away. They are very elderly. Many of them have already passed away, and the benefits are now passing on to their children or grandchildren. And it's just taking longer and longer and longer. Mm. And I really am concerned about it. I think it does require some real pressure on the national minister to move it now. Now we've got a new minister. I haven't seen or heard any interest from him in the matter of District 6, and I just fear again that it's gone back to the back burner.
Mm. Before I pivot to a completely different set of area of service delivery, you took was it Dean McPherson,
yes,
the Minister of Public Works, to some buildings that are derelict in the CBD and elsewhere, abandoned buildings. What is the plan there?
So again, most of the derelict and abandoned and problematic buildings in the city are not owned by the city. They're owned by other government departments, mainly Public Works, some Transnet, some PRASA. And so I took him to some of his buildings, some of the most problematic. I feel sorry for him because he's got 8,000 buildings around South Africa. Many hundreds of them are derelict. But you have to start somewhere, and so I want him to start in Cape Town. I sympathise for his national problem, but I care about Cape Town, and so I want him to ideally to get rid of those buildings. So long as they are in the hands of the state, they will continue to be failure buildings and problem buildings. There will be crime that happens from them. There will be drug addicts living in them, and so on. So I want him to, ideally, those that are worst, they must be demolished, and those that can be salvaged should be sold so that they can be put to better use. Either give them to us and we can use them for affordable housing or safe spaces, or sell them to the public and the public can do something with them, develop them and use them productively in these communities, but don't let them continue to be big problems. So he has drawn up a list of about 10 or 12 properties in Cape Town that are problems, and our request is simple. There's nothing that we can do about it. We're just pressurizing. We want them to either hand them over to us or get rid of them, but do not leave them, or third, demolish them, but do not leave them in their current state.
Or use them and not leave them in the way that they are right now. And there's a commitment to doing that.
There is a commitment to doing that, yeah.
Okay. There's a big concern that I've been picking up, and I see some of it on the WhatsApp line as well, about recreational spaces that are being done away with, or some of it is being privatized in some bit or the other. I'll group them together. There's the Good Hope Centre that has now been put up for development. There's, or at least there was the film studio that used to be there as a tenant, but there was some chatter about using the precinct for some other things. So that's the Good Hope Centre. Then there's the Klipfontein Athlone Stadium development considerations. There was some chatter about developing the stadium into maintaining the stadium but putting some residential and other commercial property on it. So there's Klipfontein Road. Then, of course, the Bellville Velodrome, which has been a particular issue as well. Public spaces. Yeah. In which you are trying to attract some investment in them as well. But with that investment, sometimes people get very anxious because, they do not have access to these spaces, such as in the case of the Good Hope Centre.
I get that. But the problem that the city faces is that the maintenance of these properties is extremely expensive. And we are really struggling to maintain our swimming pools, our clinics, our sports grounds, our stadiums, our community stadiums, our running tracks, our libraries, and so we have to get clever with the way that we try to raise money from these properties so that we can fund the maintenance of all the other properties. So Atherton Stadium's going nowhere. That's an essential facility, and it's a beautiful facility, but it has this enormous grounds around it, which we can all see when you drive past, a huge parking lot. And so there is a proposal to take a sliver of that parking lot along Klipfontein and develop it into some shops, restaurants, accommodation as well, which I hope will start to bring that precinct to life, because when there's not events at the stadium, that whole little node is quite dead. And what you want is, you don't want the stadium to be this dead space. You want it to be an alive space where there's people coming through the week as well, not just when there's events. So hopefully that helps with that. Good Hope Centre it hasn't been used by the public for a decade already. It's been rented to a film studio for the longest time, and it's just to fix the roof, because it's got this fancy Italian roof. It's apparently the quote is about 60 million rand just to fix the roof. Now, of course, the city can do that, but that is taking 60 million rand away from other community sports facilities, cricket grounds, rugby fields, soccer fields, whatever the case is. So our assessment is it is not actually an essential facility that's needed for the public. It hasn't been used for the public for years. It's been rented to a private tenant for a movie studio, and it can be used to raise money for the city for other purposes. So that is going out to the market.
But how does one balance what that venue used to be used for, which was community events, sports events, cultural events, and then renting out to a private tenant that can pay rent, and the city can earn some money off from that and use that money, which I suppose you're going to tell me that you use that money elsewhere for other services in the city, but balancing that with there being no other real such a recreational space, even though for the longest time it's been rented out. The reality is that is the purpose that it used to serve, and it no longer, and for the longest time, hasn't been serving that purpose. And this is what the residents feel, that there's been properties like that and others that there shows a pattern that it's being either privatized or it's rented out for long leases and so on, and the public do not have access to these spaces.
So the gap that the Good Hope Centre fills is for a large indoor space. So there are other halls in the city that are very large indoor halls. The Good Hope Centre was, maybe in the 80s and 90s, a place where big shows and that kind of thing happened. But there's other spaces now that provide that service. There's the Artscape Theatre, there's the CTICC, there's also community priced venues, Bellville Civic Centre, what's the one? OR Tambo. So there are other options for big indoor venues. And if the feeling is that there's a need for large indoor spaces that are not catered for, the size of which are not catered for other halls, then that's something that we can also look at in future community hall developments. Maybe we must go even bigger than Bellville Civic or OR Tambo and do even larger indoor spaces. But unfortunately, the way that building was designed, because it was designed with this fancy roof, it is so expensive to maintain. It's not like maintaining a normal community civic center or even a large civic center. It is like it's off the charts expensive. And that is the balance that you're talking about. You have to make a difficult call. Do we continue to invest tens of millions in this asset just because of its fancy roof, or do we actually use that money elsewhere and get better value for money out of it?
The velodrome?
So the question there is, again, it's enormously expensive to fix. We have a quote for 200 million rand to restore the velodrome to world-class status. Now, you can say it doesn't need to be that level of world-class. That's fine. But we haven't yet decided what to do with it. So it's not true to say that we're definitely selling it. We're debating. Do we repair it to keep this indoor, again, another big indoor events venue? With the outdoor track, or is there something better that we can do with it? Use the money to develop other tracks elsewhere. There's long been a call for a track at Westridge Gardens at Stephen Regan. We could do a nice smaller pavilion there. There's long been calls to improve the tracks at Blue Downs and so on. So there's lots of calls for new athletics facilities. And again, so that is an open debate. There is a public participation process. I'd like to hear the views of the public on that.
Yeah.
But the balance, again, you've hit the nail on the head when it comes to getting the balance right. Yes, it's possible for us to spend the hundreds of millions fixing these places up, making them into world-class sports facilities. But all of those things come at an opportunity cost. There's something else that can be done, and that balance is always tricky to get right.
Just on the Athlone Stadium issue, there's a follow-on to that. I know I interrupted you a couple of bits on some of those things, but there was one that says that already we have shops and restaurants in this. There's so many of them here down this road.
Yeah, on the other side. Yeah.
Why do we need more of them at the Athlone Stadium?
Well, why wouldn't you want more of them? I mean, why do we need more shops anywhere? I mean, there's lots of small business owners that need venues for their small businesses. There's lots of restaurateurs that would like to start little restaurants, coffee shops, takeaways. I think it's great investment in the area. It brings that whole precinct to life. Hopefully we get some great quality shops there and some restaurants that people can visit. Why wouldn't we want that?
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the listeners has asked the question. It's a strange question. Of course, we want more investment in the Athlone area. I think that Athlone is a very, it's an amazing area. It's right. It's so close to the CBD. It's right in the heart of the city. It's ripe for much more investment, and I'm hoping to catalyze something there with turning that precinct on, making it safer, making sure there's presence, later at night. Yeah. All of that stuff adds to safety along that Klipfontein corridor.
All right. Because, look, we are pushed for time, so I'm not going to try and of course, get into every bits of detail of every story, just so that I still want to talk a little bit about crime and some other issues as well. But just, I know a lot of our listeners, come from the Rondebosch East area, and they are concerned about that 7 hectares of land that the Mayoral Committee released. This public participation process last I checked, I think it should be wrapping up anytime soon. I'm not certain of it, but there were some people that were terribly upset about that because they're thinking you're inviting, characters that they're not wanting, in their vicinity.
Yes.
Just a quick comment on where that process is, and again the motivation for that.
So the most important thing that I need to clarify, this is the most common misconception that I run into when I mention the words affordable housing. People think it's an RDP development. Let me make it absolutely clear. It is not an RDP development. That is not on the cards. It will not be on the cards. That is not what we are suggesting. The person that we have in mind here, the young man, the young girl who is matriculated or finished with varsity, wants to move out of their parents' home, wants to get married, but cannot afford anywhere nearby to where they are currently staying. There's no starter homes available for them. There's no 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom apartments that are affordable. People that work in the area, there's nothing that's affordable for them to find. And then very, very importantly, Tashriq, we find this in all of our social housing and affordable housing projects. One of the most common residents, it's the elderly. The elderly people who live in the area. They may have lived in Rondebosch East for decades. They're looking to downsize. Maybe they can't afford to run and maintain their big homes anymore. They're looking for places that are affordable. So these are the people that we have in mind when we do these kind of proposals. It is not RDP development. And if you see how successful these projects are around the city, they turn into wonderful, wonderful spaces that are filled with people from the community and communities actually become proud of these places. And they have long waiting lists to get into them afterwards. But we always face this misconception that it's, going to be RDP development, going to bring bad elements, whatever the case is, all that kind of coded language that you hear. And let's be honest, it is. But I want to put people's minds at ease. The proposal here is for what we call starter homes, affordable accommodation, accommodation for the elderly, stuff that is in huge demand in that area where there is not adequate supply. And the fact is, we cannot keep talking about the housing demand in Cape Town and then say we must have much more housing in Cape Town just as long as it's nowhere near me. It doesn't work like that. We've got to use the land that we have available. Land is being made available in Goodwood, in the city, in Belleville, in Rondebosch, wherever we have land. We are seeing, is it appropriate? Is it big enough for development? And we are putting it out so that we can get more of that affordable accommodation that we need.
All right, let's run through some of the questions that we received elsewhere. I've been seeing some of your messages, and I combined it with some of my existing questions. But let's deal with specific ones. Dr. Abdurrahman Clinic. This is, I think, here in the Bridgetown area. It's a clinic. I'm not sure if it's a city-owned or city-run clinic. The listener wants to know: have you ever visited it, and can you share us with any plans to improve the facility as it is in desperate need of improvement? This is Dr. Abdurrahman in the Bridgetown area.
I haven't visited it. I can, but I first need to check whether it's city or province run. Maybe the listener can just let us know. We've got 97 clinics around the city, but the provincial government also runs a large number of clinics and day hospitals. Usually the bigger ones are provincial clinics. So I can just check on this and let you know later.
Okay, Junaid says he lives in Durbanville and he walks around the Eitzig area and it's dirty. There's service delivery issues. When will the area see better days?
Okay, that's quite an open-ended question. Junaid, I'll have to just follow up with you on what your specific concerns are. I've been to Eitzig many times. It didn't seem like that to me, but I'll get in touch with you afterwards and we can get your specific complaints and follow up on them.
Why are the streetlights on 24/7? There's absolutely no vandalism or copper cables in our area being stolen ever. It is completely built up with lots of security. It's kept on for months. I phoned the relevant authority, but nothing is happening. My only conclusion is that council is wasting our money so that it can justify massive increases in electricity. Struggling families who can't afford rates and electricity charges in the Boerkaap would have to sell their homes, says that one in there, on 0786 10 11 12. But this issue of streetlights burning all the time.
Okay, the reason we only leave streetlights on to try and prevent cable theft. I'm prepared to guarantee that in the area that you are talking about, particularly if it's in Boerkaap, because of the residents living at the kraal, there is a lot of theft there. There is a lot of vandalism there. And so that is the only reason we leave it on, because it is slightly more difficult, not impossible, by the way. It is slightly more difficult to steal cables when the lights are on. When you try to saw through that cable, you might get a little wakkerskrik shock there. And that helps to stop it. But let me tell you, we are spending R500,000 a week on streetlight cable replacement. 500,000 Rand a week is what Cape Town spends replacing streetlights. So it is cheaper for us to try and prevent that by either leaving them on, or you will see, I hate it, it's very unsightly, and it's happening even where I stay in Edgemead now, but we have to string the cables through the air. You've seen that, where we take it out the ground and we string the cables through the air, just to prevent that theft. But that is the reason we leave streetlight cables on. There's no nefarious or malicious intent that the person is trying to. We are actually just trying to stop a situation where, if you visit Johannesburg, like I sometimes unfortunately have to do, I try to do it as seldom. Unfortunately, yeah, I try to do it as seldom as possible. But you can drive 10 kilometers without seeing a single streetlight on.
Or traffic lights at work.
And that's because it's the same as here. It's not like it's any different. They've stolen the cables and no one replaces it. It just gets stolen and then it's stolen forever.
Yeah.
Here, we replace it and replace it. We are not going to give up on that. We will not have a situation where we have kilometers and kilometers and neighborhood after neighborhood of just blackness. So we are going to keep on doing that and making it as hard as possible to steal.
The next question has a little bit to do with that, but not entirely also. A resident of Main Avenue in Gleamore requested 30 palm trees to be trimmed. They received 4 reference numbers later. The guys came out and only trimmed 1 palm tree. Now, look, I suppose you're going to have to get into the details about palm trees and its trimming in Main Avenue in Gleamore. But the point that I want to highlight on this is that, for instance, where I live, I had a street light that were not working, and I reported it, and within a week they came and they fixed the thing, and I was pretty satisfied with that. But the point that I've seen from that experience and some others is that there are scenarios where you report things to the City of Cape Town using the portal and other ways, and you get a reference number, you get the SMS that it's logged, and then suddenly it's set to resolve when issues haven't quite been resolved, and there's no further communication on those issues. How is that process managed? Because there isn't, to me at least, it doesn't seem like somebody's actually taking the due diligence or taking the time to see whether an issue has been resolved. I know that may be an impossible task given the amount of calls that are being logged, but there's a great level of frustration with calls that are being logged and just simply being put to resolve when they haven't been resolved.
I'm afraid it does differ from department to department. So electricity is usually excellent. We do have problems with Parks and Recreation's management of the service requests. We find that it does sometimes get closed without being resolved. For that reason, we have added a dispute button on the app. So if you have logged a service request and it is closed inappropriately or incorrectly, you can actually dispute that, and then that dispute gets escalated to that person's manager. So they will get a flash on their computer screen that says, this resident Tashrik has disputed that this matter has been resolved. Please look into it. So that has helped a lot. And then, of course, if that continues to happen,
I see as part of the website you can escalate it to your office as well.
Yes, you can. That's what I was about to say. If that continues to happen, there's a number of other escalation mechanisms to your councillor, to your mayoral committee member, or indeed to my office. I can also say that when it comes to tree trimming, what they will usually do is they will wait for a certain batch to come in. So they won't send a team out to trim one tree. They will wait for 10, and then they'll do all of them together. And that makes sense. That's just from an efficiency perspective. But certainly for this complaint in Gleamore, I can follow up on why only one was done and not all of them.
Okay. In Greenpoint, a listener, first of all, saying thank you to Radio 786 for informative programs. The question to the mayor is, can we have the holes replaced? The metal covers are missing. I suppose you're talking about drain covers along Greenpoint up to the lighthouse. There seems to be an issue there with recycle bins that are overflowing as well. I'm a senior driving along Rondebosch, Lansdowne, Rylands up to Kenilworth. So much recycling going to landfills. Okay, so there's a couple of issues you raised there, but I suppose the one issue around is missing drain covers around the Greenpoint area.
Just please log those with using the service request app, sir or madam, and they will be replaced very quickly. If you need help on how to use the service request system, please contact us and we can take you through it. Or you can, if you want to do it the old-fashioned way, you can still call the city and using the call center and report the location. and those drain covers will be replaced.
Zahir wants to know whether it's why you can't go after illegal scrapyards that are taking on the copper, because they're the ones that are taking on these cables and things that are being stolen.
We do. We raid the, illegal scrapyards all the time. I must say, they're not stupid. They hide the copper extremely well. I've been on a number of these raids ourselves, and sometimes you don't find any copper. I've been on some where we have found streetlight cable and streetlights, and obviously we arrest those people. We try to shut down those facilities, but they wouldn't be in business if they made it so easy for the cops to find the copper. They hide it extremely quickly and extremely well. And if you go and find an enormous pile, a ton of scrap, let's say, and somewhere in that pile is a little block of copper that could be several hundred streetlights, it's really hard to find. So, for example, we've invested in a copper sniffing dog. I did not even know that you got such a thing.
A copper sniffing dog.
We have our first one now. I didn't know that copper has a smell, but it does, and dogs can find it. So when you go and you find that huge pile of scrap, you don't have to unpack that whole pile. They can tell you, okay, inside there is some copper. Then you can unpack and find what kind of copper is it. So we have that now. We have a sniffer dog for copper. But yes, it is a constant challenge, but we do often raid the illegal scrapyards. And you are right that every bit of copper that is stolen is sold somewhere. And that is really part of the problem.
Somebody wants you to get in touch with the councillor in Old Pelican Park, because they say the grounds there, the parks, have been neglected, and calls for budget to be spent is being ignored. The councillor spends the budget on the park in New Horizons, so maybe just to look into that, as it were. There was a question about semigration.
Yes.
The last time you and I spoke, I told you I was a little bit uncomfortable with saying come to Cape Town, because there's a traffic problem, there's a congestion issue. You've highlighted it at the start of the program, together with housing, and I'm going to combine two questions again, the housing concern as well as the Airbnb, digital nomads. I know you've been commenting on this issue, saying that you don't quite believe that it is driving up property prices. I saw another report that says there's the highest concentration of Airbnb properties in Cape Town. I'm not sure how true that is, but the net effect of that, the argument is that it drives this concept of gentrification, which has positive elements to it, but the consequence of which is that locals are being driven out of the market, and other countries have noticed this and have put certain regulations in place to regulate, for instance, your Airbnbs. So if are you not convinced that is causing an issue in terms of property rates and so on?
Okay, so let's be clear about what the number one priority is in South Africa and in Cape Town. The reason that I am in government, and the thing that keeps me up at night and that I obsess over every day, is the scale of unemployment and poverty in this country. That is the priority. We have to grow this economy to get more people into work and out of undignified living conditions. So that is the number one priority in our country. So tourism and hospitality is one of the most important and quickest ways that we can grow our economy. It brings wealthy people here from all over the world. They spend a lot of money here. They spend dollars. They employ people. There's more than 100,000 people in our city already working in hospitality, and it could be 200,000. We need many, many more visitors, not fewer. So that, I think it's a huge potential growth industry, not one that we should be looking for to find ways to shrink at all. I also don't think that digital nomads, wealthy people, remember in order to get a digital nomad visa, you must earn $40,000 US. So the wealthy people coming to rent high-end flats on the seaboard, that's not where the housing pressure is in Cape Town. The housing pressure is, to go back to your Rondebosch East question, is the young man or young lady trying to move out of their home and get their first apartment. That's what they cannot afford to do, and why we've got to speed up the supply of that kind of housing in our city. So that's where my focus is going to be, in the housing pipeline, not at the price of high-end apartments with an ocean view on the promenade. I mean, we'd all love to live there, but we can't. That's why we live where we can get value for money. I live in a neighborhood called Edgemead in the north of the city. It's a lovely neighborhood, but it's a cheaper neighborhood. It's more affordable, and those are the choices that we have to make.
Are we out of time? It's 9 o'clock, and I cannot end the program without reflecting on a very tragic story of this 5-year-old kid that died, and you released a statement.
Yes, I'm so sorry.
In regards to that, it's symptomatic of, I suppose, a bigger crime issue that we're struggling to keep under control.
Yes, it really is. It's hard to put into words what one feels when you read about a story like that. As a parent of a young child, my heart just goes out to those parents, and I really just sympathize with them, and I pray that they have peace at this time, to the extent that is possible, and I pray that there's some swift justice for those murderers. We have to carry on doing everything possible and work even harder to just try and stop the horror of violent crime, or not stop it, because I don't think it's possible to stop, but to slow it down, and to bring it to within some level of normality. We really are trying to do everything that we can with the resources that we have, by focusing them on areas where the problem is worst. We make sure that we have got 24-hour patrols there. We make sure that we've got our drones there, our shot spotter technology there, everything that we can. But there's no accounting for this just unbelievable evil that where a person, a human being, can pick up a firearm and fire without any sense of regard for all of the people playing in the street, all of the people walking in the street. It's hard for any kind of policing strategy to deal with that level of craven evil. There's no other way to describe that, and lack of regard for other human life. So we hope that the police catch these people. We'll support them any way that we can. And we'll continue to do everything that we can do every day to try and get guns off the street. I must say that we have had some success. Obviously, it's hard to talk about successes when you're dealing with a tragedy like this little boy. But, when in the last couple of months, we've got, I think we're up to 150 plus guns off the street in Hanover Park and Manenberg. And so we must at least be grateful that every one of those guns is a number of other potential tragedies stopped, and so we must celebrate those successes. But of course, as a parent, it's heartbreaking, and we'll offer any support that we can to the SAPS in trying to hunt down these killers and make sure that they're brought to justice.
On a somber note, we end the program there. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, for having joined us this morning. We'll do this again sometime during the year. Another round of questions, of course, from communities and listeners on a whole host of service delivery matters. All of the very best for the year ahead.
Thank you, and to you.
I suppose we shall see you soon at the Ramadan Expo.
Yes, we will see you there, and I really look forward to 2025, and thank you for this opportunity to start it on such a good note.